Welcome to the 101st Friday Feature Artist Interview. We're doing things a little bit differently this week. You see, a few months ago, in a tiny and vibrant bookstore cafe in Tokyo, Japan, I got the pleasure to sit down with Lindsey Gradolf, otherwise known as Lindsey Anne on Instagram, to talk all things embroidery and living life as an artist in one of the busiest cities. I hope you enjoy this intimate conversation where you'll get a close-up look at Lindsey's current obsession to stitch abstracted versions of all 78 tarot cards. We also discuss Instagram and what works for her and what doesn't, synesthesia, and how music plays a major part in her art making. We even discuss the top 3 places to visit for textile artists in Tokyo. So sit back and relax and enjoy this very casual conversation with Lindsey, where we really get to know the artist behind the Instagram account. Enjoy. So here we are in Tokyo, Japan, and no trip to Tokyo would be complete if you're a textile artist without speaking to Lindsey Anne. Hello. So we're here in a little tiny bookshop and also a cafe, and they've allowed us filming upstairs, but we have to be quiet. So we'll take you on a little virtual tour after this, but first we want to talk to Lindsey and just say thank you for meeting with us.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for your bookshop space.
This is great. One thing that we've noticed being in Japan, everything is so tiny and quaint, but everyone's super friendly and very helpful when you need help. So yeah, it's been great. So what brought you to Japan?
My partner and I met in college in university, and I ended up choosing Japanese randomly to fill a language requirement, and it turned out I was actually pretty good at it. My professor said you should go study abroad, so I did. Went to study in Osaka for a year, came back, and that was at the height of the 2008-2009 American economic crisis. And so I had originally wanted to go to Columbia University to get a PhD eventually in Japanese literature, but the option was take on professional student debt in that climate or take the job that was offered to me in Hiroshima Prefecture. And so I took the job in Hiroshima. I worked at the Board of Education for 5 years through the JET program, and then at that time got my master's in education. And like Japan so much, we just never left. We moved to Chiba for 1 year. I took a job up there, and then we've just been in Tokyo ever since, so 7 years in Tokyo now.
7 years in Tokyo. Wow. Do you think you'll ever go home?
Currently, no, I'm not thinking of it. I mean, news, but I'm actually looking into possible citizenship.
Yeah, wow.
That's my current trajectory I'm actually considering, which is shocking to think about, but yeah, I have no plans of going back.
Yeah, well, good luck with that.
Thank you.
I was going to ask you, how do you get citizenship in Japan, but
it's actually much easier than getting a visa, so that's the good news.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so who knows?
And it's wonderful that you speak the language, so just...
COVID ruined my Japanese. Moving to Tokyo lowered it, and then COVID ruined it. Because in Tokyo, people try to speak English. All my Japanese friends speak English and want to speak English to me. And then COVID, I basically just stayed home for 2 years straight. Yeah. And like all of my friend circles kind of exploded. Like Japanese friends went back to their native or like hometowns because they couldn't afford to stay in Tokyo. There's no work. They left. Foreigners who lost their jobs left Japan, and so like you guys coming here is kind of like the beginning of me like seeing people in the past 2 or 3 years, basically. So, but yeah, my Japanese is not very good anymore. I can order copies.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So that brings us to your art, and you're teaching.
Yes.
You're here in Tokyo, and you're kind of famous on Instagram. So
yeah, how'd that happen?
How did that happen?
I don't know. My partner Ryan told me I should make an Instagram. I was just bored and kind of dissatisfied with the job I had before I took my current position here in Tokyo. And he was like, you should share this because like it's kind of insane. Instagram's a visual platform, and so I figured if I'm going to take the time to share it, I might as well do it well. And so I researched like, this is the filter you should use, this is the time you should post if you're in this area. Like Monday is good for art, Tuesday is good for cuisine. And it's like I researched it.
Right. So it's working.
Apparently. I'm shocked by Instagram because I don't think I'm not an active user or member.
Yeah.
Like I'm not commenting on people's posts very regularly. I'm not posting a lot of stories.
But people are commenting on yours. Like, I was looking through it last night.
Yeah, I feel bad. I try to say thank you to everyone. It's like thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know what the secret is either, but you've obviously found it.
Be consistent. I mean, I post every Monday at 7 o'clock in the morning.
That's your thing.
That's my thing.
Yeah.
And then I don't touch it for the rest of the week.
Oh, how nice. Once a week.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
we all just love to post once a week.
It's how I stay sane. I joke like it's feeding. Before I came here, in fact, because tomorrow I'll be out all day, I took the photo today for Monday's post, and I call it feeding the beast.
Feeding the beast. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's what, 73, 53. Hang on, I wrote it down. There's 72.5 thousand followers who from January 18th, 2018. So 5 years plus. So yeah, there's 72,000 people that are loving your posts all the time. Like, yeah, and your engagement's wonderful. So
every single opportunity I've had on Instagram has been passively received.
Yeah.
Meeting you, meeting all my friends in Tokyo. Like tomorrow, meeting a woman from Australia, and we're gonna have a tour day date around Tokyo.
Oh wow.
But like every gallery exhibition I've had, every friend I've met has been through Instagram, and so it's a love-hate kind of thing. But that's wild that you wrote that down. I'm so embarrassed.
So how did you come to textiles and stitch? I noticed that you were a watercolour artist.
I've been trying to get back into it actually. I painted in watercolors probably from like 2007 to 2012-ish, just self-taught, but kind of abstract pattern watercolors. And I guess around 2010, because of Instagram. Like I was on Instagram, but not with an account. I was just stalking people, and I came into contact with like slow fashion and like indie pattern making or drafting, and so I got interested in like just clothing, I guess, and like vintage textiles and garments. And the embroidery artist Tessa Perlow.
Oh yeah.
Do you know her?
Yeah.
She does kind of like mystical motifs on recycled garments or upcycled garments, and so I saw that and I was like, well, that's cool. Because I don't like sewing. I don't like buying new fabric to make clothes. Like I've always been like a vintage shopper, and so the whole like slow fashion movement, like the visible mending people, I found them. I don't feel like I'm in that community, but I was inspired by it. I was like, well, if I do this kind of mark making in watercolor, maybe I can do it with embroidery. And so I started that way. And that's actually how I don't do sashiko. I've tried. I'm really bad at it. My work is not sashiko. But from that, I came into contact with sashiko. And I was like, oh, I've been in Japan for all this time and had no idea this existed.
So what is it?
What is
sashiko?
It's just, I mean, I'm embarrassed. I'm not an expert. I don't really know.
I don't know either.
It's the running stitch that people use to mend clothing.
So like what you'd see in boro.
Basically, boro is like the process over time when it's like redone and redone and redone. I mean, sashiko is like the stitching, and people do it. Like most of my Japanese friends do it. I can't do it. But yeah, boro is from the north. I'm sure, like
Okay.
Sashiko.
Yeah. And is it related to like the cantha stitch? Is it similar to cantha stitch?
I think it ends up looking like kantha. Like sashiko is just a running stitch.
Yeah.
There's different patterns too.
Yeah.
And I'm so not in the sashiko community, I can't even tell you the pattern names. Okay. But there's like patterns based on regions or like communities that have meaning, kind of like not similar, but somewhat similar to like Irish sweaters, like this family has this pattern kind of thing, and so that's interesting. It can be used to mend, but it's also highly decorative. The patterns are really intricate, and they do have meaning. Again, I'm so bad at sashiko that I actually don't know the names. I'm really embarrassed because now you're catching me on camera with my ignorance.
Oh no, that's okay. I wasn't familiar with the word,
okay, cool.
or the stitch, so that's fantastic. We're all learning, and that's the beauty of this.
I'm not the person to teach you, but yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
So show us some of your work. You've brought some with us.
Yeah, I as I was running out of the house today.
And even look at this bag. This is beautiful.
So Instagram, I I made this specifically to make cute Instagram posts. It looks nice as a background. So if you see this on Instagram, that's what it looks like. It hides my dingy apartment floor.
Yes.
So there's that.
It's gorgeous.
But maybe a year ago now, someone on Instagram reached out to me and she said, when I look at your work, all I can see is the tarot cards.
Yes.
And I was like, I was completely unfamiliar with the tarot. I had to research it, in fact. But this time last year, I was sitting in a staff meeting and I was like, I'm going to do it. And so this is the work I've done towards that for the past year. I brought a piece of work I'm working on, actually, but I just started the Ace of Wands 2 days ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, actually, I'm not familiar with the tarot, but the Fool.
The Fool?
The Fool.
That's appropriate. Wow.
And I'm actually going to probably redo the Fool, the Magician, and the High Priestess.
Yes.
Because I've since learned a better way to finish them, and they're a bit larger now, and so these are quite small.
Yeah. There's intricacies of this. I mean, Instagram's one thing, isn't it? But to actually hold this piece here is just look at the back.
Yeah. Everyone likes the back.
I know. Everyone wants the back.
Everyone wants to see the back. Yeah, I really like. It probably speaks to my personality, and I'm surely on the spectrum somewhere. But I really like intricate work. I really like repetitive, intricate, detailed work, and so. Yeah, I feel very satisfied when I see it done.
So if we were to put this next to a tarot card that was the Fool, is it a direct replica, or what is this represent? How is this translated? I'm self-taught. I'm not very good at different kinds of stitches, and so I found the blanket stitch to be really useful in filling a space quite quickly, and so I've stuck with that. Yeah.
And the spiraling circle motif in all my work does have some personal meaning, and so it was convenient to use towards this project. And so, if you want me to break it apart, the Fool, again, I'm really bad at tarot, but the Fool's about motion, as I hope the motion of these stitches kind of conveys that. He's got the rose.
Yes.
He's got the satchel, or his what do you call it? His little satchel on the stick.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And the white dog.
Yep.
And that's the cliff and the sun in the background.
Oh, wow.
And so I try to make them mirror the tarot, but it doesn't look like the Fool, obviously. But they're all kind of...
You taking symbolic elements of the card and translating that in your own way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would hope so. And maybe you can look at them all later, but this is the Magician.
Wow.
And so it was handy to find...
So this one's the Magician, yeah?
I really like this particular brand of thread by Yokota Dharma. And it's just button, it's not embroidery thread, or it's just machine weight basically. But I love these colors, obviously, and they're convenient because there's 4 elements in the tarot, and so to find 4 colors that match wands would be fire, red, cups would be blue for the water, white would be the swords, because it's air, and then yellow would be the pentacles because it's more earthy. And so I just finished, so here'd be an example, the Wheel of Fortune.
Ah, the wheel, okay.
Because all 4 elements are represented in the Wheel of Fortune as well.
Yeah.
So I tried to emulate that.
That's beautiful. I love this.
Thank you.
And this is metallic thread.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It took forever to find.
Yeah?
Yeah. And it's really frustrating to sew with. And I am only going to use it for the major arcana because I absolutely hate sewing with it. It breaks constantly. It frays. It's impossible to thread through a needle, and so I'm glad that that part's done.
I don't think I've ever met anyone that likes working with it.
I had no
Everyone
idea.
always says
I had
that.
no idea.
I love it, but I don't like working with it. Yeah.
I like how it looks.
Yeah.
I'm kind of worried how it's going to photograph, because one day I would like to make a deck And I don't know if it's going to pick up and translate well, but
Could maybe scan?
yeah, I have no idea. If you have suggestions, let me know later.
Well,
I have no idea.
I do know a wonderful artist called Fleur Woods, who's also a textile embroidery artist, and she scans her work and it comes up beautifully. So I'll ask her.
Yeah, I need to look into that.
I'll ask her. I'll connect you guys.
Yep.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, but they've kind of changed in size since I started, and so I'll probably redo a couple.
Yeah.
But then I finally got to like a good size and finishing. Like the chariot was the first one, where I gave it like a finished edge, and so it looks like a card, more like a card, I would hope.
I love this layering, how you've...
Yeah, so getting into textile work, I tried my hand at sashiko, I tried my hand at quilting, I tried my hand at applique, and I don't have the patience for following instructions or the patience for having a perfectly finished like quilting is really lovely.
Yes.
I don't have the patience for it. And so this is my version of quilting where I just lay on top.
Yes.
But then the problem is you have to tack it down.
Yes.
And so that's why it's so dense. In order to make it like one piece of fabric, I just keep sewing over it.
You just have to keep sewing it. Yeah.
I've gotten better about quilting. Like I just finished The World and I've not put it on Instagram yet. Like I have learned to do patchwork, but that's the extent of what I'm willing to do.
And so how long, I know this is like a common question, but I'll ask it anyway. How long would a piece like this take?
It's hard to say. People ask me that a lot. And
Sorry.
No. It's a valid question. Because what person sits down and does feels compelled to spend this amount of time on something? That took probably 15 hours. I don't do it all at once. I was on holiday to make that, and so there was a point towards the edge around here where I was like, oh my god, please just finish this. It's funny about talking about Instagram. I don't identify, it's kind of lonely, but I don't identify with a lot of the community on Instagram because I'm not a slow stitcher. If I could go faster, I would.
Yes.
I don't relish in the slowness. It's not a form of meditation for me. So yeah, by the end of this one in particular, I was like, please just be done.
Just be done. You need to get it out of you.
Yeah,
And
it's like a compulsion.
And then you need to start.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you can see here where I kind of gave up. I don't know if I want to add gold here or not, but I was just so done with the gold, I just went.
Do you guys want to have a look?
Yeah,
Yeah.
enjoy.
These are fantastic.
And yeah, I brought, this is what I photographed today.
Oh,
The
this
sun.
is beautiful. Oh, look at that. That is beautiful. Look at that. That is gorgeous. And so these fabrics that you're layering with, I've read on your Instagram that you get them gifted to you a lot, but you also love to go to thrift stores.
Yeah,
And so
shops.
tell us about where your fabrics come from.
People give me things. So for example, people give me things. This blue circle of the Hanged Man came from my friend Ryuichi of Old Industrial. He just had some scraps and he was like, hey, here you go. And so this came from him, for example. It's on a flour sack that I found at a vintage shop. It's an American flour sack, actually. I found it in Tokyo at a vintage shop.
That's cool.
I buy a lot of, this whole piece was a fisherman's flag.
Oh,
And they're really vividly colored, very high contrast colors. And so if I can find those and cut them up, it's kind of like paint at that point. And you can kind of, it's like built-in color blocking that I like to use as pattern. Like here, this white stripe is part of the flag.
Yes.
It's not layered, and so that helps. Things like that. And you can see on the back, I think, it used to have, that's the writing of the fisherman flag.
oh wow.
I shop a lot at the Oedo Antique Market, or I used to before COVID. I shop a lot on a Japanese website. I don't want to say it.
No, keep it secret.
If you're in
Something?
Japan,
No.
if you're in Japan, you know which one it is. It starts with an M. But I have a few sellers on that website who I've come to know by name. So, for example, these pinks and oranges, I really love. It's called Beni Banazome. It's safflower dye.
Yeah.
And so I have a few acquaintances now on this selling website that will know I'm looking for it, and they'll hold it for me.
Oh, nice.
And so I do that. probably more than I should. But.
So you said, how do they make this? They dye it with flowers.
Yeah, it's naturally dyed with it's called safflower.
Safflower
in English.
Yeah. Okay.
But it gives like from pinks to purples.
Oh, wow.
And so I'm always on the lookout for that kind of fabric.
Yeah.
This is all Benny Bonazzone.
Gorgeous. Isn't that gorgeous? So what is the plan for this series? Like how many more do you have to give birth to? And what's the plan? Is it an exhibition? I'm assuming you're not selling these just yet?
No.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would ever want to sell them. Like the ones I may redo, I might sell those to just get them out of the house. But there's 78 tarot cards.
Right.
I'm learning as I go. I just finished the major arcana, which is 20-something, 22, I think. So 78 minus 22. And that took me a year.
Wow.
It wasn't particularly focused.
Yeah.
Like I was doing other things alongside it. And so I really want this to be moving on. And so if I focus maybe a year and a half, realistically, I would like to have an exhibition. It's hard. Like I'm not very good at like reaching out to galleries, and like the language is sometimes a barrier. I'm really bad at framing my work or how to present it.
It would feel like such a shame to frame it.
I don't. Well, so if I collect a lot of like antique boxes and like tins as like a shadow box kind of thing. But because this is like a cohesive piece, I can't really find enough vintage boxes to put each one in its own vintage box. 78 would be
A lot.
just overwhelming numbers on a wall.
And to put that together and plan it in such small living quarters and things, I could imagine that'd be quite a feat.
I don't think I could ever display. I mean, having all 78 on a wall would be kind of intimidating, and because they're all different sizes too. Like I try to make them the same size, but they shrink sometimes if they're too dense. Sometimes I only have a certain amount of fabric. Like this is a kimono.
Oh,
I only had so much of it, and so the border's quite small compared to this green.
I like the irregularity of it though.
Do you? Because sometimes I look at it and it's like, oh, they're all over the place.
But I think anything, like one thing I've really noticed being in here in Japan is the scale of things, but there's so much repetition.
Yeah.
So we went to a paper store yesterday and you looked up behind sort of the counter and it was just all the colours of the paper. And so anything in mass, in repetition, I think is very appealing to the eye.
Yeah.
So these would be great.
I hope so. Thank you.
They're going to be fantastic.
I need to find someone who's willing to print them into a deck or scan them into a deck. But this is what I was working on this morning before I came and saw you. The needle's still in it, actually.
Oh, fantastic. Look at that. And this is a beautiful pattern here that creates such texture. I don't know if you guys can pick this up on the camera, but it creates like a 3D effect. Is that a traditional type of stitch, or is this something that you've taught yourself? What is it called?
No. It's just the blanket stitch. It's the same stitch as this.
Yeah. Just done in a circular.
Yeah, I found something I liked. And like you know how knitters get really good at knitting and they can just space out and keep knitting?
Yes.
Like I can do that with the blanket
This is your
stitch almost.
meditation.
Yeah.
Your meditation. Yeah.
And muscle memory is a thing. Like I can go very quickly. I like the blanket stitch and the spiral motif again. The spiral motif does have some personal meaning to me, so like it's nice to see it done in different ways. This actually destroys my hands, and so I have 3 more to do for the tarot with this pattern, and I'm done. I don't know if you, like it's.
Yeah, look.
It's kind of a thing, so
It's okay.
I try to keep that to a minimum.
Workman's hands.
Yeah.
So how far out do you plan them in advance? Like, tell me where the inspiration comes from.
I have a friend who's into the tarot here in Japan, and she gave me an app recommendation. And so I'm literally just going one by one, and I'll think about it. I don't keep a notebook or a sketchbook or anything. I don't have the patience for it. And so usually, because I commute to work on the train, I'll think to myself like, oh, the Ace of Wands is basically done because I know how it's going to look now. So now I'll look at the Two of Wands. Two of Wands is next. And so I'll think about like, well, these are the images. This is like the color palette I have to use. It's this number, so it means I can't remember. But even numbers in the tarot are about stability, and the odd numbers are about movement.
Okay.
It could be vice versa. It could be vice versa. I don't know. I'm not an expert. But so for those minor cards, if it's an even number, I want the patterns to be more straight. And if it's an odd number, have more movement, like sideways or like a swirl to it. So I'll think about that. I'll think to myself, like, well, I've got this really nice blue fabric, and it's special, so like, which one am I going to use it for? The hermit card is not particularly impactful, I think.
Oh, but the subtlety is beautiful.
But the card's kind of subtle, and so that's what I was thinking of. And the indigo it's backed on is the oldest piece of indigo I had.
Wow.
And so in my mind, it was like, well, the hermit's old, and this is old.
Yeah.
So it fits together.
So
It's kind of, yeah, it's haphazard. Everyone loves the back.
Maybe there's a way you can display them so that people can walk around and see the back as well. I don't know. Maybe don't put it on the wall.
Or like leave some, for people to see. I don't know. Something to think about. If you have any suggestions, I'm open. I don't plan them ahead. I luckily found the thread colors I want to use. And, I like the what do you call it? Like simplicity of my work and like developing on a theme. And so it's like, well, I know I can do these 4 patterns, and luckily there's 4 suits. And so each suit gets its own pattern, and so that's done, settled.
So that's done, yeah.
I was really stressed about making the, the royal cards. And I finally landed a motif for that in my head. And so now it's like, well, I have the ideas, I just gotta sit down and do it. So it's kind of a relief.
Yeah.
But I don't know what's, I need to start the 2 of Wands, and I don't know.
Good luck.
It's gonna have 2 of something.
Well, I'm sure we'll just have to wait and see how it turns out, and keep following on Instagram to see. And then hopefully one day the exhibition, we'd love to see that.
Yeah. I mean, it's gonna be it'll be huge, and so
You'll have to get a bigger apartment.
Currently market for one.
So you mentioned that circles had a personal meaning for you. Are you happy to share what that is?
Yeah. I really like the artwork of Louise Bourgeois, and I really like her artwork and her spirals, like the collection spirals that she did. Mm-hmm. I have a lot of commonalities with her childhood, and so that really resonates with me. Felt a connection with her. And I'm embarrassed I'm crying.
Art does that to you, doesn't it? And the people and the messages that they bring through their art.
People always ask me, like, what's the spiral mean? Do you know Junko Oki? The Japanese embroidery artist?
Yes.
People are always like, are you copying her? And it's like, no, like the spiral for me is like this.
It's meaningful for you.
Yeah, I should probably write it down and be more articulate because it's emotions, but
Yeah.
It does have a meaning. I'm trying to share it more, but it's hard.
Well, when you're ready to share it more publicly and put words to it, I think that can be very meaningful. No, don't apologise. I think
okay.
I think it's beautiful that you feel so deeply about it and your work, and that there is real meaning behind it. Because sometimes you can look, at any art and go, I could do that, but you can't. Not everyone can do this.
Thank you. It's hard because people are like, oh, that's so cute. That's like, please don't call it cute. Cute. I always get cute, cheerful, and it's funny because it's like, maybe it is cute and cheerful, but I'm not when I'm making it. And so when people are like, oh my gosh, like, you must be so fun, and it's like, thank you. Like, I hope you think that way. I think it comes from a dark place. Sorry for the crying.
No, not at all. Well, it's certainly when I look at this, I don't feel darkness. And I think that's the beauty about art as well, is that sometimes you have to leave it to the eye of the beholder.
True, very true.
But I think this is beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Louise's work was amazing. I was lucky enough to see it at the Hayward Gallery in London last year.
Okay, yeah.
And it was just incredible.
I've only ever seen her work at the Hirshhorn in DC, and then the Spider, is in Roppongi. I've never seen like a cohesive collection of hers.
Yeah, it's incredible if you get the opportunity to.
Definitely.
Yeah, certainly incredible. Talk to me about synesthesia. What does that mean to you?
It's really funny having left home so young. Like I left home when I was arguably 19, but then left the country permanently at 22. And so like Japan has like very poor mental health services. And so, like, I'm probably the spectrum somewhere, but when I read about synesthesia, it was like, you mean you all don't think this way?
Yeah. You don't see or hear, or how does it affect you?
Mine is more auditory.
Yes.
And so, like, I listen to a lot of music, and when I'm listening to music, it's like, this song is red. And, like, when I always, I mean, you often start a conversation like that, and it never comes up naturally of, like, this song feels like this, or this song looks like this in my head. But then, like, reading about synesthesia, someone mentioned on Instagram, like, are you, like, I think
Do you hear that or see that as well?
I think someone just asked, like, are you familiar with synesthesia? And I was like, no. And so I looked into it, and I don't plan or even, acknowledge self-diagnosis, but, like, I do identify strongly with synesthesia tendencies, especially with auditory sounds and also shapes. Like, colors and shapes have personalities to me. Like,
that's fantastic.
It sounds weird to say out loud. Like,
yeah, I know.
Squares are angry, but circles are friendly. Like,
well, they're sharp. They've got corners.
It's not as strong as, like, most synesthetes or synesthesia people. Like, the number 4 does not have a personality to me. Like, numbers don't have personalities. There's no color to a number, for example, but light synesthesia. Yeah. The song sounds like purple.
Yeah.
Having made so much of my work now, I can see, like, I can tell you what song I was listening to when I made it. And in order to, like, make a certain motif, I'll listen to certain music because it elicits that repetition. I really like house and, like, trance and techno music. And so,
I wonder how many embroidery artists can say that.
Yeah, I feel weird saying that loud too.
I love that.
Depends on my mood in the season, but I like house music a lot. I like a lot of, like, dub.
I don't know what that is.
Like stuff with, like, a strong beat, maybe.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And so, I'm listening to a house album making this right now.
Okay.
And so, like, yesterday I had my noise canceling headphones on, listening to this house music, and I was like, oh, get it done. And I think it looks particularly aggressive. Like, yesterday I got this part done, maybe. And these look much more angry compared to the bottom part,
yes,
in my opinion. And so I think the music
affected that.
Yeah, I think so. I really like Philip Glass, and so, like, I was listening to Philip Glass piano suites when I made The Hermit.
And this one, do you remember?
Vampire Weekend.
Vampire Weekend?
Do you know Vampire Weekend?
Is it a movie?
No,
it's a movie. Do you know what it is? My husband behind the camera knows what it is.
Their first album, if that helps. Mansard Ruth. I really like music. So I've gotten into making reels on Instagram.
I saw them, and they do the little stop motion. They're so cute.
We have to feed the beast.
Yes, feed the beast, but that takes time. I was looking at that last night going, how do you do that?
It does take time. I have a rig in my apartment. It's a collapsible easel with a selfie stick zip tied to it.
Yeah.
And it can go up and down.
Yeah, nice.
And then I have a self-timer clicker for my phone.
So you don't even have to touch it.
Yeah. And it takes about, like, I did that stop motion, and it took only like an hour and a half. And then as I was sewing, I was listening to the Drudy column. And because I was listening to the Drudy column while I was making it, I made the Drudy column the song to reel.
Oh,
and so often if it's, like, in the reel, that's what I was listening to.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
But yeah.
That's fascinating. Wow. So what's next? You're going to finish these off? Do you have anything else brewing?
No, not really. It's hard for me to exhibit in Japan because I teach. I can't really do any, like, residencies because of my teaching schedule. A few times I had exhibited in Japan have been less than ideal, successful. They see my work, and particularly in Japan, and it's not Japanese people, it's globally, like, oh, that's so cute, teach me how to do it. When's your workshop? It takes a certain level of obsession to make something so dense,
yes,
and I can't teach that in a 2-hour workshop. Like, I can teach you how to do the backstitch, that's very simple, but I can't teach you how to sit with yourself for 5 hours straight. But as far as plans go, I would like to get this done. I would like to, people tell me I should make a book, but I don't know how.
There'll be people that can help with that.
I have several large works I'd like to make. I have one I'm working on now that's maybe the size of that window, like 2 meters by 2.5, 3 meters. But it takes me about a year per large piece because I'm working on other things simultaneously. And so during COVID was really nice because COVID in Japan was about 3 years.
Wow.
And so we had like a longer lockdown than, you guys couldn't come. Like the whole country was shut down. But I had about 3 years of interrupted work schedule. And I was really fortunate to be at a school that paid me to not work. And so
What a blessing.
Yeah, it's a Catholic school, and so that's probably part of it. But I was basically paid to not. I was
It's paid to do other work.
yeah. And so I did 3 large pieces during that time, and now that COVID's over, it's kind of like, oh man, like now I've got to like work
Back to
again.
work.
Yeah, and so I am working on a large piece, but it might take me years, or a year or 2. Larger work.
Larger work, yeah. Well, I hope that it comes to fruition. It'd be fantastic.
Me too. Thank you.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, for anyone that was coming to Japan, to Tokyo, and if they were interested in textiles, what are your top 3 recommendations? Which is, no pressure, but just what would you do if you had a few days in Tokyo? And
The antique market, if you can swing it, in the International Forum, the big one, the Uedo Antique Market, is nice, a little overpriced. There's smaller ones around town. If you can research it, look for those. There's various galleries around Tokyo that specialize in textiles, but it depends if you can hit the right time. And so Art Space Mayu is a good one.
Oh, yeah.
For textiles. It depends what kind of textile you're interested in. Are you into Japanese textiles or Hungarian textiles? Because I can tell you a great Hungarian textile place in Tokyo.
Yeah.
My buddy Yuichi of Old Industrial, he is also a social worker for Sora to Umi, a special needs day center for adults.
Oh, wow.
And they do, specifically, they focus on textile work. And so if you want to see work made by special people, they do just gorgeous, large tapestry work. And so you can go, it's a bit hard to get to, but it's worth it. They have their own gallery space and a cafe. It's really lovely.
And you've got friends at a place called Blue and White?
Yeah, Amy Kato is the owner. Her daughter Saya works there as well. And it's like in Japanese they call it a zaka shop.
Zaka shop.
And it's like a kind of odds and ends gathered together and curated in a certain taste. Yeah. And so her shop is blue and white because literally everything inside is blue and white. And she knows local artisans around Japan. If you want a hand-embroidered, handmade coat, she knows a woman in Aomori can, and she'll call her up and she'll be like, hey, I need 3 jackets. And then so she supports that woman's art and then brings it to Tokyo. And she's a lady about town. She's the ultimate tastemaker. She knows everyone. And so if you're here, you should go meet Amy.
Yeah, okay.
I think she might be out of town at the moment, so I can't say. But yeah, Blue and White's really good.
Yeah. Talking about clothing, just because you brought it up, you reminded me to ask you, but you take some great photos of yourself wearing your art. Is that right?
Yeah, hate's a strong word. It gives me great anxiety to post my photo on Instagram. I do not like it. My partner takes my photos for me, and he jokes that I'm a cat. I don't find myself to be very photogenic. And so he'll pose for the camera, and I'm posing, take the photo, and I'm making a silly face, eyes are closed. It's a lot of time for me to get a good photo for Instagram.
But you wear a lot of sunnies in your photos, that's all good.
Yeah. I'm blind as the bat, so it's always prescription lenses. But I do garment sewing, or I embroider on vintage garment. Some are so old that you should not wear them. I made that white tunic with the red bird on the chest. You could wear it once maybe, but
it would fall apart.
It won't stand laundry.
Oh.
And so it's there, but
something for the wall.
Yeah. I don't wear my own clothing often. I have a few shirts I've made for myself, but I wear those specifically. I didn't really dress up today, but if someone's Lindsey Anne, not Lindsay, it's okay,
I'll be Lindsey Anne today. I'm not Lindsay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll put it on the shirt. Okay. dress up time.
Dress up time. Yeah. But do you enjoy that though? Or it's kind of like you feel like you need to do that
I used to enjoy it more, but the way my Instagram's taken off, it's kind of like weird and feels slightly performative. I'm in a weird place with Instagram at the moment where I used to be more engaged with people, and I've kind of backed off in the past year and a half. It's just taken up too much of my time, and it's too overwhelming to have so much contact with people constantly. And so to dress up, it's just like, I don't...
So I read somewhere that you have a disdain for brands. Are you worried that Lindsey Anne is becoming a brand?
Yeah, maybe a little. I never expected to be so popular, but people like will very kindly do like a mending piece on their own garment or do something inspired by my work and then tag me. And it's like, oh, that's really lovely. Like, thank you for acknowledging me, and like, I'm happy to have inspired you to do something. But when I look at their work, it's like, oh yeah, that's me. Like, red, yellow, and blue, or like, I very clearly see myself in their inspiration. It's like, oh, I guess I am very predictable, huh? Like, bold colors, shapes. Lindsey
I don't know
Anne.
if it's predictable, but maybe it's recognisable, and that's quite often a good thing.
Yeah, no, it's true.
As an artist.
Yeah, it is. I wish, like I mentioned it earlier, like I don't really identify with a particular community on Instagram. It is quite lonely. Like, I wish someone else would do something weird so I could talk about it with them.
Well, there you go. There's an invitation for people to do something weird.
Do something weird.
Do something outrageous.
Do something weird
unique.
and then let me talk to you about it.
Yeah, and then Lindsey wants to hear about that.
Yeah, tell me the weird thing you're doing. I can't be the only one.
No, of course not. Of course not. Yeah. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you.
Those were good responses to your question. I feel like I rambled.
No, not at all. Not at all. I think it was fabulous, and I'm really looking forward to sharing your work with everybody. And it's
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and thanks for organising this beautiful little coffee shop here in Tokyo. Where are we? What district are we in?
Ueno.
Unio.
Ueno.
Uno. I can't say it.
Ueno, where the park is.
So if you come to Tokyo, make sure to check out this little cafe here. We will put a link in the, what do we call them, show notes?
Definitely.
But yeah, this has been fabulous. So thank you so much.
for your
Hope
time.
you enjoyed this little intimate conversation with Lindsey Anne, and make sure you give her lots of love.